Hi folks and welcome to Billy Maine Storytime. Today is Wednesday, June 24th. It's about 3:10 p.m. and my name is Mike Reynolds. I'm a writer and former webmaster for Billy Maine. We have a much more knowledgeable woman that does our website now, and I just write, and actually I do a lot more storytelling with this. Being a Billy Maine Storytime, I think it's more. We started this during the depths of COVID about 6 years ago, over 6 years ago now, and we kept it going because I thought it was really important to have something that was moral, something that was visceral, something that was maybe not too scripty, but like captured the moment of what was going through disabled activism at the time. And Lewiston, where I'm from, we also went through a mass shooting and some lockdowns. We have lots of problems with guns right now in the area, and it's not normal or reasonable for people who have been dealing with this stuff in Lewiston for so long that we haven't been dealing with guns. It hasn't been a major issue. Now it's, I mean, we've had some really scary situations in the past couple of years that went to lockdowns, and it's scary, and so, but yeah, it's also very grassroots, very DIY, very punk in a way, but also focused on trying to help people. And right now there's a bunch of stuff I was waiting for, so I didn't do anything last week because I was waiting for the governor's race results for the state of Maine. We have ranked choice voting, RCV, so it takes longer. And I was also waiting to see what was happening with the Department of Ed and Health and Human Services taking over the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Services, which we moved to the Health and Human Services. Federal Department of Ed is no longer functional and hasn't been for over a year. Must be nice to be Linda McMahon, former head of the wrestling department. I think she worked in business, and now she was head of the Department of Ed, and she wanted to mantle it, and she got her wish. And that's sad because Betsy DeVos, who was like everyone expected to do it, didn't even do it. Which really shows how messed up this place can be at times. But so beyond that, there was a ruling in the Office of Legal Counsel at the White House that the 1999 historic Olmstead decision that was decided by the Supreme Court shouldn't exist. It was decided on June 22nd, 1999, and released, and it said that people with disabilities should live in the community just like anybody else. It's something that I've had as a personal mission since I was, I want to say, a very young adult, and being able to grow up in an area where, people weren't included and did do stuff, you know, and I lived pre-ADA. I was 15 when the ADA was signed. So, in a way, I was literally lucky enough to grow old with the ADA. So yeah, I was 16 when it was signed. So yeah, that, I should know my own age, but I was 16 when it was signed, almost 17, and it's been 30, almost 36 years, and now Olmstead was this latest legal interpretation, which is very problematic. Maine has now made it quite risky for people with disabilities to have to survive. And so, with that, there's been so much work in the last 25 years to make sure that Olmstead, which made sure that people with disabilities has the right to live in the community. And in Maine, that's really important because it was only in 1995 that we closed Pinelands to. Now Pinelands is a wonderful, thriving community of like outside investors from out of state that try and do plant farms and all these micro, beautiful areas, things that are going on where the former institution was. But there was thousands of people that were there for decades upon decades upon decades, and the abuse was horrible. It ties back directly to the Malaga tribes in Maine. They were some of the first people to be sent to Pineland because they were not considered true white people, or they weren't considered to be capable of working within whatever the community concepts were for the time. And when you have a kind of history where indigenous communities, communities of people with disabilities, people who just had behaviors that were not considered normal for society, were shipped there, it created a state-funded mandate to basically isolate these people with disabilities, mostly mental disabilities and intellectual and developmental disabilities, away from people. One of my friends was supporting people who went there and went to the closing, and she couldn't get over how many keys they had to keep people locked up. It was literally a pile of keys on a desk to keep people locked up in all of these wards for years, decades, over 100, close to 100 years. And it wasn't only Pineland in Maine, it was Willowbrook in Connecticut, and New York, and Boston, and everywhere, and people just took it as normal because it was normal. It was what doctors said was needed to be happening. It wasn't until 1999 when the Supreme Court finally gave a mandate that people with disabilities do not have the right to live in a community, that even was changed. It was two people, Maine and Lois, who were in Georgia, who sued Olmstead and made its way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court held that yes, Maine and Lois did have a right to live in the community, and they seen Lois at a convention I was at. I'm sorry, Elaine. But I can't confirm that, though she did go live traveling, and she may or may not be alive, I'm not sure. But Elaine Wilson was her name, and will always be an incredible advocate. Simply by being part of Olmstead, let alone what she's done since then. And she's been around this country talking about her times on Olmstead. But Olmstead is super important, and without it, it means that people will not have the ability to live in the community. And if you look at what the Republicans were writing about in Project 2025, where they wanted people with disabilities, if you were homeless, to be put into institutions, we looked at that and said it wasn't possible because of Supreme Court rulings such as this. Now that with legal concerns being where they are, and while the Supreme Court hasn't changed their opinion on Olmstead, who say that they're not going to? I mean, I'm not sure that the Supreme Court that ruled in 99 is at all the Supreme Court of 2026. And seeing the recent Supreme Court rulings just on like things like having religious hair, religious freedoms and hair whip, how you wear your hair, and the ability to sue people that violate those very basic rulings. Absolutely just doesn't give you any feeling that they're going to be careful about this. I mean, they haven't cared about women's rights to choose. They haven't cared about the civil rights of people and voting maps. And now we're looking at the ability to live in community with being under attack. That's not right. It really shouldn't be right. This is when people should have a Bible. There is a Bible on fire going on right now. And it's the attack on Olmstead. Right now, this is like a Bible on fire that needs to be getting every disabled advocate out of their chair, out in the streets, doing things to make sure that people who don't know about Olmstead learn about Olmstead. People can, institutions cost money. It's far cheaper to keep somebody in a community setting than it is in a institutional setting. And of course, like a playbook, in Maine, Republicans are going after minority-owned, community-based home care and other care agencies to say abuse is happening and overspending is happening, and that's a really bad lie, but it keeps people focused on what is it. It focuses people on their anger and their ignorance, and not looking at the reality that what these services need provide is people living in the community. And for the most part, those services are not rife with abuse. They're not. They just haven't been. It's very rare, especially in the state where rates of reimbursement are not that high. It's really difficult to make money, let alone provide, group homes. I'm not saying group homes are great, but they definitely need to be a continuum of care. And I don't think they're great for everyone, but I think they need to be a thing for some people. Personal attendance services, which are also extremely needed for everyone. A lot of people with physical disabilities use personal attendance services on a daily or weekly basis. And if I need them, I want them to be sure that they're there, and I want to make sure that they're accessible and fully funded and easy for me to use as a person with a disability. And it's terrifying that Olmstead could be overthrown, or people could, or the courts could say that it doesn't apply when it's been the de facto decision for 25 plus years. And it has completely changed the way in which people with disabilities have been treated in our society. When you have the expectation that people are going to live in the community, that changes the way we are taught, the way we are included in communities, the way that we focus ourselves, the way that we are included, the way we talk about people with disabilities. We talk about disability in communities because, like everybody else, people with disabilities belong in the community, just like people who are queer, people who are from a different area, people who speak a different language. It's all the same, folks. I mean, there's nothing that a person with a disability can't do except what their disability prevents them from doing. And you use people, and with personal supports and other supports, that can be dealt with. I mean, if you have someone who can't feed themselves, it's cheaper to have someone come in and feed them, and then to put them in a nursing home and pay for their nursing home feeding and their nursing home caregiving, and they can't leave a nursing home, they can't visit the nursing home, they can't travel on public transportation. So it's way cheaper to just keep people in the community with the appropriate supports. Now beyond Olmstead's huge, and I'll probably do more on Olmstead later this week or early next week. I'm trying to do as much as I can. But I can't be the only one. There needs to be a lot of people in Maine that can write stuff, and we need people to talk about this at the legislature, and we need people to have our politicians come out and say that this is not in any way a good thing. And I think it's very important to get people to address disability issues as they would address any issue, because anyone can become disabled at any time. And while that may not be any type of disability, it's enough of that. It's scary. I'm making no bones about it. This wording scares me. The thought that people are trying to do this scares me, and the people I know. And I don't know anybody who would be, actually I do know people who could be institutionalized. But I mean, that's what scares me, is that it could happen very easily. Because of, lawyers that don't believe in disability rights or that disabled people deserve the same rights. Get elected into a term of office, a very conservative president, and his apparently business week a Bloomberg insider saying that Stephen Miller is the person that is pushing this. Stephen Miller is a very conservative person who's originally from California, went to school in North Carolina, Duke, very solid conservative who's been Islamophobic and transphobic and ableist as can be. This is his MO. He has scary amounts of power in the Trump White House, and he's the one that's telling people to do this. And before that, Brian Kemp, the current Georgia governor, has always also tried to make the argument that Olmstead doesn't apply to disabled people, and that people with institutional care should be used. And it was a really bizarre argument. But now that the Office of Legal Counsel is trying to use this, make no mistake, this is a legal theory that the Heritage Foundation in Project 2025 had already said they were going to set their minds to. Whether or not the theory itself is that good or not doesn't matter. It matters that they're doing it and that they know what they're doing. And the problem with the right that the left doesn't understand is that the right puts out documents that last 10 or 15 or 20 years when Justice Alito wrote the paper that ended Dodge, that ended Roe v. Wade. He very clearly stated that he's been working on trying to end Roe v. Wade since the early 80s. They have razor light precision on what they need to do to get this through. And it's dangerous and scary, and it's not something that is going to help people with disabilities. In fact, we need to have someone who is as dangerous and scary and as lightning focused to help us bring back this right-wing conservative, very well-focused, very well-moneyed, who can bring this stuff to court, who don't have to worry about scraping up money for press releases or whatever, who have the people in power at their beck and call and make, to use the, quotations that, institutions are better for people because they let them, people be safer, they'll be in a safe place, all that stuff. It's not true. It's not going to be true. It's never true. But, if they keep talking about it long enough, they think it's true. If they sound good, happy, and they sound like they care, then, well, people are going to buy it because, these people are not, no, they're not extreme. They're just, thinking that, people who aren't as well versed in disability law it may come across as reasonable. It's not until you know somebody with this disability or deal with this disability, and maybe deal with disability on like a real structural level, like what. I mean, obviously, if you have to deal with Maine care, Medicaid, and the formulary, and what products are paid for and what products are not. Right now, as a person with a disability, you are not. You've got to figure out what products are finagle or do whatever you have to survive. And that's difficult. And I don't know if that's going to be helpful, based on what state you live in or what, federal district of, federal court district you live in, or what, your disability is. We just can't have major laws like Olmstead being overturned for no reason. Now, additionally, there are other stories that have hit the paper or hit the news this past 2 weeks. Hannah Pingree will be the Democratic nomination for governor, along with Bobby Charles from the Republicans and Rick Bennett, who's an independent. Rick Bennett was a pretty moderate Republican who isn't a Trumper, seems to grow to an independent because he doesn't want the Trump MAGA base. And he could be a potentially good option to Charles, not as good as Hannah Pingree, but good. And I'm kind of upset that Shanna Bellows didn't get in, but Hannah and Troy were all considered to be great people to work with. And on September 10th, there will be a candidates forum in Augusta, sponsored by Disability Rights Maine. That's September 10th. But I think that's going to be a good start for people to realize that, where people stand on this. And Bobby Charles is kind of a just really dangerous person who is transphobic, who is racist, who says things to get people riled up and says things that are not grounded in reality. Very pro-Trump supporter. And the runoff against who's going to replace Senator Collins, Grant Plattner, won, and he announced that his announcement was the day of the primary, which was the 9th. So it would be Plattner versus Collins versus probably some independent, but I'm not really sure right now what that looks like. But basically, Plattner versus Collins. And with the new UCP with some with the new Department of Health and Education moving into the Health and Human Services, which is actually happening. So what's happening is that the Department of Education and Health and Human Services will be implementing an operational agreement regarding the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Services, or OSERS. There's a lot of uncertainty around this announcement, and they'll be working with agency leaders to unite cerebral palsy, Congress and affiliate networks to support smooth transition and protect access to the essential services. Again, OSHERS overlooks everything from IEPs to way accommodations, and funding is given to all sorts of people in America. OSHERS administers the education for people in all 50 states. That means up until age 22 sometimes, or 21, sorry. People with developmental disabilities are allowed to have an education. Again, with OSHERS transferring to Health and Human Services, and with RFK Jr., Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s having a background in all sorts of anti-disability, anti-medical documentation, especially with vaccine and other information. It's kind of scary to see what's going on with special ed right now, to be honest. And if special ed and it's going to be dismantled, and they're going to bring institutions back, kind of makes sense. I mean, if you lose your ability to educate, you make a lot more people go to institutions. It's bad precedent, bad work, but obviously if you're trying to do this and you're not someone who has a background in this, you may not know how bad this is, but it's really bad. And it's scary. And I think all we can do right now, it's really hot out, and I've done what I can to educate. There'll be more information. So many nonprofits, national nonprofits, major nonprofits have made statements against this Office of Legal Counsel's interpretation of Olmstead that it should be making bigger issues. Black girl Maine, who was on Democracy Now! Wrote about yesterday. Again, Monday was the 26th or 27th anniversary of the Olmstead Act, and it's now under attack, which is not a good thing at all. So, as such, we'll be talking to you later on this week, hopefully, or soon, and we're going to have more to talk about, and we're going to have this and the other stuff on YouTube. The document right now, Facebook only allows us videos to be on their site for 30 days and 4 days a weekend, so we've got to go and download them and upload them to our YouTube channel, and we'll be doing that as well. And until then, we will hopefully see you soon, and hope you have a great day, and we'll hopefully see you soon. Peace out, and keep a positive thought, and remember that this is really Pride Days in Augusta on Mill Street. July 18th, possibly Disability Maine, and keep a positive thought. We'll be back when we can. Bye.